paint me red in this light that isn't mine. Finding every reason you can find to question my love. Remember that it's not me. I was never the one who broke your heart. We both know I've been gentle from the start. So though the questions keep on coming this time, you know that I'll listen. You know I'll be patient with you. You're my baby. Maybe this time you'll know you can trust me. You'll know I'll be faithful to you. You're my baby. I was never cheating. You connected dots that weren't there. You gave attention to the thoughts I never wear. It's not my style, even though it's so clear to me. You shouldn't base the future on the past. I know you really want this thing to last. So though the questions keep on coming this time, you know that I'll listen. You know I'll be patient with you. You're my baby. Maybe this time you'll know you can trust me. You'll know I'll be faithful to you. You're my baby. I don't wanna fight now. You're barking, you bite now. To prove that I'm right now, that you lost your sight now. I'm holding it tight now. Can't see through the night. How to show you my light now. To paint these walls white now. I don't wanna fight now. You're barking, you bite now. To prove that I'm right now. That you've lost your sight now. I'm holding it tight now. Can't see through the night. How to show you my light now. To paint these walls white now. So though the questions keep on coming this time, you know that I'll listen. You know I'll be patient with you. You're my baby. Maybe this time you'll know you can trust me. You'll know I'll be faithful. So though the questions keep on coming this time, you know that I'll listen. You know I'll be patient with you. You're my baby. Maybe this time you'll know you can trust me. You'll know I'll be faithful to you. You're my baby. To you, you're my baby. To you, you're my baby. To you, you're my baby. I don't wanna fight now. You're barking, you bite now. To prove that I'm right now. That you've lost your sight now. I'm holding it tight now. Can't see through the night. How to show you my light now. To paint these walls white now. If the road of truth is fine, which one of us is out of line? Although you say you can prove more, I can feel it down to my core. In a world where our words go
What up, everybody? It is Friday. That means it's Science Friday. Let me get this little animation up. Hold on. Sorry. There we go. Cool. Let's switch that over. Sweet. Science Friday. How's it going, everybody? Happy Friday. Hope everyone's having a good start of their weekend, and if it hasn't started for you already, I'm sorry. I hope it starts soon. Um, so I recently mentioned on my Twitter that Science Friday topics are going to be freeform for a little bit because the quarter is over. So I'm not attending an everyday or every Friday lecture. And if you're very unfamiliar with Science Friday, then I'll quickly explain what Science Friday is. So to do that, I'm going to explain a little bit about myself. I am a fourth-year graduate student in Social Neuroscience, which I'm going to talk about today, what that even means. I'm a fourth-year graduate student, and so I've been doing a little bit of research for a little bit, and been in the field of social psychology, specifically within psychology, social psychology, and that's why my lab or my science would be called social neuroscience, because we're combining social psychology with methodologies found in neuroscience. So me as a graduate student, we get to attend a seminar every Friday, or a talk, if you will. And this is given by professors from all over the world, from different universities that have different professional backgrounds. They are related to ours, of course, but they just come and they present their current research or things that they've currently investigated. That's kind of redundant. Or just other step work. What's up, Geeky? Welcome to Science Friday. Why is the chat not showing up? But welcome in. Good to have you here on Science Friday. It's always fun to have people on Science Friday. I was just in the middle of kind of introducing Science Friday really quick. Let me make sure the chat will actually function. I'm going to blank that out for a second. Let me just get the chat working here. But I was just quickly introducing Science Friday. So I was just mentioning how, sorry, I'm using Streamlabs for my chat room. I was just mentioning how for December, those speakers from all over the world are not coming because our quarter's kind of over, so we haven't invited a guest or anything like that. So it's been kind of freeform, and today is going to be one of those days where it's more freeform. Because Science Friday, the topics were usually on things that I had listened to that same day, so I was just kind of telling people what is going on around the world in science, if you will. Now, why is my chat box still not working? Let's refresh that. There we go. Okay, let's see. This is why you test. I was trying to test. Testing. Boom, works. Yes, this is exactly why we test and do science. Perfect. Okay, let's get that back up. Okay. Now my computer's freezing up. This is a little embarrassing. Anyway, so yeah, I don't know why this is freezing up, so we're gonna have a blank screen for a second. But anyway, so today's Science Friday, I was just trying to come up with some topics, and I actually got inspired by recently talking. Oh, PowerPoint just crashed. It recently, or maybe it didn't. I don't know what just had happened. All right, let's get this guy back up. Can we get that? Thank you. Man, I recently talked to a student that was interested in working in my lab, and I kind of did like an interview. And something that she had mentioned that kind of caught my attention was she didn't even know social neuroscience existed. And I mean, that's an interesting notion because actually a lot of people don't really know about our science and that it is a thing, social neuroscience. And I think that kind of reflects upon the broader concept that our science is quite new. So I'm going to talk a little bit about psychology first, and then I'm going to transition into social neuroscience. In doing so, I'm going to talk a little bit about what the fields are, what they measure, what they do, how they function, and how we go about doing research. Sorry, I'm really trying to get this thing up. It just crashed on me. I don't know how you test for that. No, that's not what I wanted. I had my water though. We're good there. Almost there. Okay. Seems to have worked. At least on my end. Screen share that. Change that. Oh, okay. It's being faulty. I'm just going to begin talking and see if this thing will kick in. I don't know why my PowerPoint is just being very, not wanting to work at all. I don't get it. Yeah, no idea. Anyways, let's get started. Let me see. One more test. Anyway, how are you doing, Geeky? Ooh, I'm glad to see that's working. GG. That's awesome. Do I even have access to that? I don't even know how to. That's so cool. Could be worse. How's how's life going? Are you like able to enjoy your weekend? Why is it freezing up like this? Look at that. If I move my mouse around, playing Minecraft, nice. Hopefully that's relaxing and you're having fun. Okay, cool. I might just leave it on this slide, to be honest, because every time I just press present, it crashes on me. It's like really struggling, and it's just PowerPoint. Yeah, it's just like... Okay, let me see. How do I get my emote? How do I use my own emote? Do I like type in... Wasn't it like a... Let me see. SP... G5? SP5? No? Huh. I'll figure it out later. I'm just trying to get this PowerPoint to work. I just want it to be there. But okay. Anyways, it's cool you're playing Minecraft, and hopefully you're able to relax. And at any point, I do want to mention to anyone listening, at any point, if you guys want to talk about anything else or have questions and want to deviate the conversation or take it somewhere else, I'm super happy to. I come up with the topics for now because so far either I start by speaking into the void, and then people join and then we have a conversation, or yeah, people are just kind of here listening. So I speak into the void regardless. This is so annoying. Let's get rid of this. Come on, PowerPoint, you can do this. I don't get it. Alright, we're just... Okay. What is this? Okay, we'll just leave it here. I honestly don't know why a very simple slide does not want to work. My mouse is on there, but... Huh. Oh, did it work? I think I got it to work. Hold up. I'm so sorry, I really want to begin, but this is also really... I don't know why it bothers me this much that it just doesn't want to work. Let's see, does this work? No? Okay, let's try this one. Nope. Let's try this one. It's just frozen. Okay. Okay, so I think it's the stream side then. Because on my side it works. Okay, let's just talk. I can't get my mind off that PowerPoint. Why it won't work? It's like it's just sticking in my mind. Okay, let's quit this. Let's quit this. All right, let's try it one more time, and then I promise everyone, I promise I will start talking about psychology. I just can't get this off my mind. Why it won't work? It boggles me. It boggles me. What am I doing wrong? Oh? Did we get it? Why? Why does it still in presenter view? Oh, I got an idea. I think I can figure this out. Oh, I'm smart. I'm smart. Victory. Yes. Oh, yes. We got it, everybody. Whoo. Okay, when I say I'm smart, I figured out something that probably anyone could have figured out in like 2 seconds, but it takes me like an hour. Okay, so let's get back on track. Um, man, that I want to also figure out how to do the GG thing, but I'll do that later. Okay, so psychology. So again, I'm a fourth-year graduate student in social psychology / neuroscience, so it's called social neuroscience. I did do my undergraduate degree. I got one bachelor's degree in biology, so I got biological sciences, and I got my other bachelor's degree in psychology, so psychological sciences. So basically, one of the things that I wanted to also talk about today, why I'm bringing psychology by itself, is seems to be this notion among a lot of people, and I'm not judging them or anything, but I just am here to kind of clarify some things. Um, that psychologists are therapists, that we're there to kind of understand dreams or emotions and stuff like that. And although that's not entirely wrong, that's more what's called like clinical psychology, applied psychology, or therapy. You go to therapy school to learn how to do therapy. So when you're doing psychological sciences or psychological studies, you're not doing any of that. You're not going to be doing therapy. You're not going to be understanding emotions. You can study emotions, but with a scientific lens, and then you give your science over to therapists and to clinical psychologists and applied psychologists. So the clinical psychology and applied psychology and therapy, a lot of them, they basically learn from the science. So someone has to do the science to learn how the mind is working, and that's where psychology is kind of coming into play. So psychology, in its very broadest sense, is understanding the human mind across all contexts that you could possibly think of. That's why it's a super broad term. So when you say I'm studying psychology, to another psychologist, they're gonna probably the follow-up question would be, okay, well, what branch? Is it social psychology, cognitive psychology, evolutionary psychology? What else do you have? Cultural psychology, close relationship psychology. There's just a lot of psychologies that can fall into play because the mind behaves and acts under all different sorts of contexts. So there's usually like a science or a branch, or at least some research field dedicated to understanding that context. So for example, in my case, I'm doing social psychology, so I'm interested in understanding behaviors at the social level. So whether it be friendship, so close relationship psychology is a sub-branch of social psychology, where social psychology is a sub-branch of psychology in general. So close relationships is a social psychology, if you will. Cultural psychology can also be put under social psychology because that's how cultures are formed, the psychology of groups, that type of stuff. Now, we're not talking about sociology. There is a difference between psychology and sociology. Sociology is looking at like the groups at the group level. We look at groups in the individual level. So how does an individual go about identifying with the group, or how does an individual behave under certain group contexts, and et cetera, things like that. At any moment, if I'm going too fast or if this is really boring, anyone's like I'm happy to like change topics. But for the most part, yeah, I'm just gonna continue talking. But yeah, and if anyone has questions, I do take breaks from time to time, so I allow for like 30 seconds for anyone that wants to type something out while I'm talking. But so right now, I'm gonna take a water break. I'll give it 30 seconds. Okay, that was about 30 seconds. All right, so let's continue. So talking about psychology and what it is and what it isn't, for the most part, like I said again, I get a lot of jokes too when I say I study psychology of like, ooh, what am I feeling right now? Or can you read my mind? Or what does this dream mean? A lot of people think that Freud is like the best example of a psychologist. Like if you think psychology should think Freud, well, that's actually false. He's was not a scientist. He didn't do a lot of valid experiments. A lot of his theories were not supported by evidence. He has a lot of crazy theories. Now he did provide some good insight. He wasn't completely a whack job or anything like that. For example, Freud's hydraulic model of aggression. So he kind of explained, he kind of had this theory or hypothesis of how kind of aggression works and penting up anger and venting. Like those are kind of derived from Freudian um, theories, or like that one I think is the one of the only ones that persisted throughout all this time and actually has evidence to it. Most of what Freud was saying we don't even learn or study. He's not even talked about in social psychology for the most part, because he was not doing valid experimental designs. Um, but his ideas were very thought provoking. So that's why he can be associated with psychology, but no, we're not we're not sitting there trying to interpret dreams and stuff like that. And I've already mentioned that therapy is again not psychology in the scientific form, but that's an applied psychology. So like clinical psychology, um, or the title is applied psychology. Um, so for psychology to actually be a science, if you will, because some people don't think of us as a science or as a hard science because we're not engineering, math, or whatever, but we do follow the exact same scientific method that other sciences have to follow, because that's why we're classified as science and not as pseudoscience. We have to abide by the same logic, the same constraints, the same assumptions when we go to stats. It's actually, this is what attracted me to psychology to begin with, was how insane they focus on their sorry, my dog's over here. Do you want to say hi, Remy? No? I don't know if he wants to say hi. Do you want to say hi, Remy? Are you being a good boy? I have a white German Shepherd here. He's a very nice dog. He's a very cool dog. Anyway, being a good boy. Okay. Anyway, so yeah, a lot of people I don't know why they have something against psychology. I don't know if they're like threatened by psychologists or something, but they like to say we're not a science. But we do have to follow the scientific method. We have to start with an observation. We have to put a prediction to it, or a hypothesis. We have to test the hypothesis under valid constraints and reliable constraints. We have to test the reliability and validity. And I was mentioning before I got a little bit interrupted by my dog. I was mentioning what kind of attracted me to psychology as a science was the fact that because human behavior is very complex, I really like the way psychologists design their experiments, because they're really thinking about all the factors that can be involved in behaviors, and they do their absolute best to control for as much as possible. So it calls for a lot of creativity, a lot of work, but that type of creativity makes it so much fun to design experiments to get reliable and valid answers to your questions regarding human behavior. So that's what I just really loved about psychology, is they put so much thought into experimental design and into the whole research process. We do have to use statistics. We do have our p-values just like other sciences do. We do have the same thing. We have like review boards. We have all of that for getting published and stuff. So psychology is just to kind of circle back to what it wasn't, it is a science. So it's not just a pseudoscience. It's not just people sitting there trying to ponder emotion or trying to predict what you're about to think or something like that. Okay, so let's start transitioning a little bit over to social neuroscience. So this is the heart of what I do. Because psychology is a lot of what I do. A lot of the theory that I know or I have to work with or implement in my studies comes from social psychology or psychology in general. But I am also a biologist at heart. The other half of me as a scientist is biologist. As an undergraduate, my favorite class was organic chemistry. I just love the way organic chemistry explains a lot of the composition of nature. I loved just being able to understand how molecules fit together in a way of, you're basically playing with Legos. That's what the class felt like, and fitting them together can create these like hormones and stuff like that. I don't know. It was just a lot of fun, and I really loved OChem. So that part of me is still, even though my degree will say social neuroscience or social psychology neuroscience, I am still a biologist, and I still really love anything to do with it. In fact, like I kind of want to take my future research, I want to take into account electrons and the way electrons behave, and kind of start to derive or try to start to talk about behavior in terms of electrons and things like that. Yeah, and human behavior in terms of electrons, and how we can kind of understand the behavior of electrons to understand the behavior of humans. So neuroscience is also just a very broad term, just like psychology is. Neuroscience incorporates so much. I guess if you really had to or sum it up in a couple of words, it's like, I guess, the science of the neurons. So understanding neurons, both a cell and a group of neurons, which creates a brain, right? Your brain is just a huge bundle of neurons with other cells. I guess they're all neurons, the oligodendrocytes and astrocytes and those types of stuff. All these neurons are just this network of support neurons, of action potential neurons. Yeah, there's that's what your brain is. It's like this big network of neurons. And so I guess neuroscience would, if I had to sum it up in a couple of words, would be understanding the neuron both by itself, or if you want to focus on just the processes of one neuron, or the whole brain. A lot of neuroscience incorporates animal models. I used to work in a lab where we had animal models. So this means that you're using animals because you can do things to animals that is completely illegal in humans. So yes, it has some elements to it that not everyone could do, and of neuroscience when it comes to doing experiments on rats. I came from a lab. I'll explain a little bit. So I came from a lab where we were looking at effects of stress on the brain. And so to be able to do that, you can't legally bring someone into the lab and stress them out, because you might actually cause some mental harm, some health damage, something like that. And that's not the point that we're trying to do. We're not trying to harm humans when we're trying to do science. We're actually we're trying to do the opposite. We're trying to find out a lot of stuff in science to improve and make progress in society and improve humanity. So sometimes we have to use animal models. Now, I don't like working with them for my own personal reasons, but that's not to say I'm opposed to animal testing. It's just one of those things that currently our technology is just not there, but it's imperative that we understand the brain to be able to tackle some of the things that humanity's faced with. Eventually, I do hope that, with better computer graphics and rendering and better understanding of the brain, that we can model 3D brains on computers and just do whatever experiments you want there. But right now, we're just not there. So in a rat lab, basically, especially the one like mine, we had to stress rats out, and then basically you do your experiments on them, and then you're going to put them down, extract the brain, and study the brain under a microscope. So you stain it with something called the Golgi staining methodology. I'm happy to talk about anything more in detail if anyone is interested when I'm going over these notions. But we had to stain the brains, slice them. So you had a little machine, kind of like a butcher shop gets thin slices. So you get these thin slices of brain cells or brain tissue, and you mount it onto your slide, and you look at it, and you can compare neurons. So that's kind of part of neuroscience. But on the neuroscience that I do, for example, we don't deal with microscopes. We don't deal with the cells themselves. We're dealing with like broader structures. We are still interested in the brain structures themselves. So this is why a lot of like our science will use fMRI technology, electroencephalogram (EEG), electrocardiograms (EKG) or ECG. We do a biological assaying. So like in one of my experiments, we were going to get saliva samples to be able to test certain enzymes such as cortisol, testosterone. And yeah, I think we were interested in those two molecules. Mainly cortisol was what we were interested in for an experiment. And that's just collected through saliva. Obviously, COVID came, so we're not allowed to do any of this. We can't scan our participants or anything like that. So our research has kind of been halted on that area. But what I'm trying to get at is a lot of neuroscience and a lot of the information we have of neuroscience is due to animal models. Actually, I think the initial studies on neurons were done on squid neurons, because I think they were so big. Because this is way back when, before like our microscopes were so elegant and good. I think the squid neuron is big enough to be able to see a lot of this behavior with your naked eye, and I think that's why people started kind of modeling a lot of shapes and drawings of neurons based on the squid neuron. I'm not entirely. I'm not entirely sure if it was squid or different sea mammal. I'm pretty sure it was squid. But anyways, yeah, it's just interesting stuff. So a lot of animals have provided a lot of insight into how our neurons work and how our brains work. Like again, going back to my lab experience, when you chronically stress out a rat, what you actually find in the CA3 region and the CA1 region of the hippocampus. So I'll put that into chat just in case anyone wants to Google it. CA1, I think CA stands for cornus amons or amonis, cornu amonis, something like that. It's because it looks like a horn. So let's see, CA1 and CA3 regions of the hippocampus. So if you Google chronic stress in the hippocampus, it'll probably be illuminating CA1 and CA3 regions of the hippocampus. And the hippocampus, if you're unfamiliar with the brain, the hippocampus was one of your memory centers. So here, if you chronically stress out a rat, and then and let's just say you had 20 rats that you're not stressing out, 20 rats that you are stressing out, and to stress them out, one thing you can do is like put them in a bound position during their feeding cycle. So it means they can't move. They're kind of restricted from moving, and that stresses them out because they feel this urge that they need to feed, and if they don't, they might die. They're on kind of like a fight or flight survival mode. And you restrain them during that time, that really makes them pretty stressed out. So if you do this long enough, which is called a chronic stress, you start to get them to exhibit depressive symptoms. They no longer seek sugar as much. So if you give a healthy rat some sugar reward, they love it. They get addicted to it and they want more. But to the chronically stressed out rats, when you give them sugar, they don't really care anymore. They're like, yeah, whatever. This is what's called anhedonia. I'll write that into chat as well. Anhedonia. It's the inability to experience reward. So in people, this can surface as like losing interest in your hobbies, and if you really love gaming, and you're, I don't know, chronically stressed and develop some depressive symptoms, you might stop liking gaming altogether. It just messes with your reward centers. So basically, in these rats that we were testing on, what you found was that not only were their memories impaired as well, because we run these rats through a lot of mazes, different types of mazes, and those rats that are not chronically stressed behave much better, and they remember the mazes much better than the chronically stressed rats. And then when you look at the individual cells, the neurons of the hippocampus within the CA1 and the CA3 regions of the hippocampus, you see what's called a truncation of the neurons. So neurons, when people were first imaging them, they were kind of describing them as trees. They kind of have these roots that come out. So you have a base cell, the soma. The soma stands for like the body, cell body. And then from the soma, you get axons, or like the cable of the neuron. And these axons are what transmit signals, and they also have dendrites. So these dendrites connect to other neurons, and the axon goes and connects to different neurons, and they create networks this way. So these names, especially like dendrites, I think dendrite is Greek for branches or something like that. But they tend to call the like branching of neurons. They're using a lot of stuff from trees because that's what neurons kind of look like when they're healthy. They're branching out. There's all these branches everywhere and interconnected. So in healthy rats, you get a lot of branching of your neurons in the hippocampus, specifically in the CA1 and CA3 regions. You get a lot of branching. They get kind of longer trunks, if you will, the neurons, and a lot more branching. In the chronically stressed rats, you get way retracted neurons. They don't have as many branches. They're just smaller altogether, the trunks, if you will. The cell body kind of remains the same, if I remember correctly. But the interesting thing was, I think really early in brain sciences, it was kind of thought that when neurons did this, they were not able to heal. But lo and behold, you can actually heal from this. So if you undergo chronic stress, your neurons might retract, but that's what they're doing. They're just retracting, if you will, like a scared, I don't know, rabbit into a cave. But when things are good again, they'll start to come back out and rebranch and start doing their connections again. So that's kind of this, and we know all these things thanks to rats and being able to dissect the cells and being able to see inside the brain using a microscope to see these differences in the branching of the neurons and being able to see if they recover or not. Because what you can do is, let's just say we set up another experiment. You're going to get 30 rats are going to healthy the whole time. They're going to be healthy. 30 rats that are chronically stressed, and then with 15 of your rats, so they all undergo chronic stress. With 15 of those rats, you put them into like a rehab paradigm, whatever, and the other ones just kind of stop, and then the healthy ones just continue to be healthy, and then you put ones through rehab, and then you go check cells. So you'll have three different neurons to compare. The neuron from a healthy rat, so we should see a lot of branching. The neuron from a chronically stressed rat, which we already know should be a very truncated, very withdrawn neurons into the dentate gyrus, or like kind of the base of the hippocampus. There's like a platform or like a ground, if you will, where these or the neurons can kind of the somas reside in. And then in your third group, now that you've established it and gave them rehab, check the neurons. Do they resemble more the healthy neurons from the first rat group, sorry, or do they resemble more the second one, or is it a mixture of both? So you can also be checking for that using just cellular biology and that type of neuroscience. Now moving on to a little bit to social neuroscience. So I've kind of been talking about neuroscience as a whole. It's just a very broad term. And so now I'm going to shift a little bit into social neuroscience. So actually studying the human mind in the neuroscience context and a social psychology context. But first, another 30-second break. Actually, let's give it a full minute. I think I've talked a lot. Let's give it a full minute, and then I'll continue talking. While I wait to see if there's any comments, questions, or any deviations in the conversation, I'm gonna see if I can get this GG emote. Oh, there it is! Shark P5GG. Nice! Shark P5GG. Does it just work that way? Nice! That's cool. I like that. GG. Good game. It's supposed to be 2 electrons flying around it. I love electrons. I want to study electrons so badly. It's really funny that this song should be playing right now. It's like, I love you, and I'm talking about how much I love electrons. And I do need my electrons. We all need our electrons. Anyway, if there are no comments, questions, or any other things people want to talk about, I'll continue talking about social neuroscience. Another swig of water. Okay, let's continue. So social neuroscience, what is that? So I've talked about social psychology, about understanding behavior, especially in the social context. And I've talked a little bit about neuroscience in the biological context, so understanding the cells that make up our brains. So social neuroscience is basically what you would think. 1 + 1 = 2. So social, from the social psychology, we're trying to understand behavior. We're trying to understand humans. We're trying to understand cognition as well. We do incorporate cognition a lot, so mental processes. And we're also trying to understand the brain as an organ. So we're kind of trying to tackle the questions of the mind. So the mind and the brain, you can think about 2 different ways of thinking about your brain. The brain as a physical organ, you're understanding the electrical connections or the impulses that neurons are using. You understand your different brain structures and how they relate to each other, the interconnectivity of them. And you understand some of the chemistry that's giving rise to your neurons reacting the way they do or acting the way they do. And on the social psychological side, you're trying to understand, and the mind side, sorry. So on the mind, you're trying to understand mental processes, such as like heuristics. So if you're unfamiliar with heuristics, this is in case anyone doesn't know. Let me see if I can spell it. Heuristics. Yeah, I think I got it. Heuristics. I put into chat heuristics. And these are basically what we call mental shortcuts. So a lot of social psychology, and you've probably already fallen victim to a lot of your own heuristics, of your brain's shortcuts. So your brain does have methods of kind of creating shortcuts for you, so you don't have to consciously think, but your automatic processes kind of take over. If you've been driving for a long time, your automatic brain kind of takes over, and you can kind of daydream while you're driving. That's an example of setting up shortcuts for you. And when, especially if you talk about the dark side of social psychology, when businesses implement heuristics, they can get a lot out of you, more than you'd like to admit, or more than you'd like to maybe even know. because they can tap in. So the science is refining the ability to tap in into automatic processing, if you will. So it doesn't even reach your conscious thought. So social psychology, or the mind, studying the mind, is trying to understand the mind and mental processes. So we're just trying to combine both. So we might have questions regarding like, okay, like, um, what causes people to want to stay together? Like, let's just say I was a close relationships investigator, but I was also let's just say I was social neuroscience interested in understanding um, why do people stay together? What is there a glue? Is there magic? Why do some people stay together? Why do other people not stay together? In terms of relationships, right? So social neuroscientists would address the social psychology literature to understand kind of behaviors. I don't know. I said behaviors, behaviors. Um, to understand mental processes, so you understand kind of if there's gender differences, but you're talking at the psychological level. So let me think of like a I don't know, I shouldn't have chosen close relationships as the example. Let's switch it over to something closer to my research. So let's do stress. Let me think on the psychological side of stress. So, okay. So on the psychological side of stress, you can get a lot of behavioral measurements without needing to tap into like cortisol or measuring physiological measures to even to be able to show like how different behaviors are impacted by stress. So you can implement a stress or cognitive load onto people, stress them out, and then you can see them behave very differently. And then you do this enough so you can get generalizations, and then you can set up fundamental, well, not some fundamental laws, but you can set up kind of your theories. Yeah, I don't know if there was anything else I wanted to mention there, but if we talk about, let me take a quick swig of water. I wanted to say something else, but it just slipped totally out of my mind as I was talking about stress, because I had already planned out a little bit of talking about close relationships, and then realized I don't know if there's any really, really solid examples I could give. Um, I guess another cognitive process I could talk about is attribution. Anyway, let's just go back to that social neuroscientist trying to understand relationships. I don't want to confuse this too much. Let's just talk about that. So from the social psychology side, you'll maybe try to understand on average which couples stay together. You might interview them, bring into your lab. You might ask them a lot of questions and start to find trends in your data. When you find those trends in the data, you can start to build models to then predict when people are going to stay in relationships. So let's just say I'm finding trends that people who tend to eat, I don't know, cheeseburgers for some reason tend to rate their relationships with more satisfaction, more happiness, more X, Y, and Z than people who do not eat cheeseburgers. Now, of course, this is extremely far-fetched. This is not true. I'm just setting this up as a very easy example for us to kind of follow along. So then you start to find that, yeah, as people eat cheeseburgers, they for some reason report more happiness than people who do not eat cheeseburgers in terms of relationship satisfaction and willingness to stay in a relationship. So then what you can do is, okay, if you think it is cheeseburgers and you think you can isolate that variable, you're going to create an experiment, and you're going to test out, okay, if I start to give random couples, half of them cheeseburgers and half of them not, I should predict, or I should be able to see that those getting cheeseburgers will be, to a significant level, will be happier and be more willing to stay in a relationship, thus leading to longer lasting relationships altogether. So that's the psychological or the mind side of things. We didn't have to tap into the brain, we didn't look at chemistry, we didn't look at anything. But a social neuroscientist might say, okay, that's cool and all, but I'm also interested in what part of the brain is kind of being activated when they eat that cheeseburger. Is there a part of the brain that lights up that other people just don't ever get to light up? And therefore, and when I say light up, I mean like in an fMRI, for example. So an fMRI, if you're unfamiliar, stands for functional magnetic resonance imaging. I'll put that in the chat just in case. So fMRI is usually lowercase f, uppercase MRI, and it's functional magnetic resonance. I'm happy to talk about what that is and how it works if anyone is interested. I've had to study it a little bit. I just find physics fascinating, and the fact that they're using coils to run currents through it to produce a magnetic field, it's so cool. So an fMRI machine is the same thing as an MRI machine. They're the same thing. An MRI machine can do fMRI and vice versa for the most part. At least our MRI can. That's my understanding of fMRIs and MRIs. Is one takes like an X-ray picture of your brain. The other one looks at what's called the blood oxygen level dependent response. I'm putting that into chat as well. Blood oxygen. Okay. So basically what that just means is that in neuroscience, when you're doing fMRI, when things light up, that indicates that there's a lot of oxygen there, meaning, so the assumption is that that part of the brain is now working or is trying to process things, and it requires oxygen to do it. So then you kind of track where the oxygen, or your blood carries oxygen, right? That's what your blood is there for. It provides oxygen to your muscles and to your brain and all over your body. It's also there for other reasons, but this is one of its primary functions. Oxygen or blood, healthy blood cells can bind 4 oxygens. This is from my knowledge from OChem and biochemistry. I love that. It has a protein that binds 4 oxygens. So basically, I don't even know why I added that snippet. I'm sorry. It's very random. I just get very passionate about OChem. Anyway, so when parts of the brain are lighting up, that's indicating to us that there's oxygen being moved there, or blood. So blood oxygen, it's over there. So it's kind of concentrated there, indicating that, or it's the assumption that that part of the brain is now currently being used. So if I ask you, think about an elephant, and some part of your brain lights up at that moment when you start to, like, right after I said it, then I could say, oh, this part of the brain is in charge of thinking about elephants. This is called reverse inferencing in science of neuroscience. So I'll put that in here in case anyone listening to this, whether it's on YouTube or here right now, reverse inferencing wants to Google these things as we go along. Reverse inferencing, or reverse inference, I'll call it that, reverse inference. So that's another part of neuroscience when it comes to brain imaging that we're doing. So the close relationship scientists might just be like, okay, let's see what parts of the brain light up when people eat cheeseburgers, okay? And then they might also scan the brain to be like, okay, when people are in happy relationships, their brain structure or their brain, you might do an MRI on top of the fMRI just to get a picture of the brain structure, and you might find differences in volumes across different specific regions of the brain. So this is what social neuroscientists can kind of do. They're going to address the literature of psychology or the mind, and they're also going to address the literature and the information and the science of the brain, and kind of try to put them together to create a nice picture of both the mind and the brain in one snapshot. And that, my friends, is kind of what social neuroscience is, and what I do. This is my daily job, is social neuroscience. Whew, it's been 47 minutes. That was nice. That's all I really had today. Really, I just wanted to do very eagle-eye view of psychology and social neuroscience, especially given that recently I've kind of heard from different people. Some people didn't know social neuroscience was a thing. They kind of assumed that they knew about social psychology and they knew about neuroscience. And when a lot of people think neuroscience, they might think rats and monkeys and that type of stuff, or we're dissecting cells, which isn't entirely wrong. But a lot of people don't put the two together because it's a very new science. Technology has allowed it to. We needed MRI machines to be able to answer some of our questions. And we didn't have MRI machines even in the 80s, just disposable as they are. They're not super disposable. They're very expensive. But now there's just more of them than we have, and the technology is much better than it was just 30 years ago. So now I'm going to stay in here, chill for... Science Fridays typically go for an hour. I'm going to chill for a couple more minutes here, just to leave the chat room open if anyone wants to talk to a grad student in social neuroscience. I am here and happy to talk to anybody. If anyone has questions or wants to discuss something, or if you guys want us to talk other sciences, I'm happy to. But yeah. Whew. Where do I find cool papers to read about neuroscience? That is a great question. Okay, so I will recommend, I'm not trying to advertise myself or self-promote, but if you join the Discord, if you just type in !Discord, there I'm happy to be posting a lot of articles. I have access to a lot of articles as a graduate student, but you can address, there you go. Yeah, I hope that, let me double check that invite link still works. It should work. Oh, okay. Let me get that invite then to you right now. For some reason, it just keeps. This happened to me last time. Let's get you invited here. But one. Shoot. I'm assuming you're talking about primary research, like you want empirical articles, or just start learning about neuroscience.
I do not know as much about human relationships as
What a song again. I do not know much about human relationships. And I was just talking about neuroscience and human relationships. All right, let's see. Let's get this invite going. So I'm going to put this up right here. Like up and coming research papers. Okay, that one, I have access to Science Direct, and Science Direct is cool. And then I'm gonna have to get. Let me get you invited here really fast, and then let's invite. It doesn't really matter. Let me create invite. Oh, copy. No, unfortunately, some of these journals are not free. I'm gonna have to investigate for you. I'll investigate where I can find some free up-and-coming journals. But I'm giving you this Discord invite in case I can. So like 2 weeks ago, I talked about epigenetics because that Friday, a researcher by the name of Dr. Katie Kroll was presenting neuroscience research on epigenetics, oxytocin, and just kind of human behaviors regarding epigenetics, which was like pretty cool stuff. This is breaking news stuff. Like it's not. Like it was really cool to hear about epigenetics being applied to social psychology. With that being said, a lot of those articles are not free, but if you request it, so if you join this Discord, we have a lot of channels, and you can request anything you want in there. There's a citation channel if you want specific citations. There's the science channel if you just want to say, hey, I'm interested in this. So if you just post, hey, I want to get access to up and coming research papers, I'm going to do my best to find free ones. And if I cannot, I can provide some other resources that I can dig up as a grad student. I just have to go dig them up. But yeah, no worries. I'm trying to. This is one of my problems, one of my big motivations to start this channel here and have this Discord community. It's not for my own sake. As a grad student, I feel very fortunate that I get access to all this information, but I feel like we should be able to share this a lot more, and I feel like more people should be able to have access to it. And so I'm just trying to create a channel for people to get access to this stuff, even if it is through me. I'm trying to figure out better ways to get you guys connected to science. But if you join this channel, chat away, put everything you want to know, and I'll try my best to find articles that will give you evidence of what you want to learn. So if I can't, and I'm going to try to look for the free resources as well. My advisor is very much in tune with a lot of the literature out there. I'm going to ask him about some free resources that I can, and then once I find these resources, I will put it in the probably learning resources. So already in learning resources, I've already put like R and stuff like that, but I'm going to try to find that. Oh, interesting. Okay, there's a YouTube channel called 2 Minute Papers, share super cool research. Unfortunately, there isn't the same for... Okay, huh. So I don't like to do self-promos. I feel really bad because what I'm trying to do here is promote science, but I'm going to do this one last self-promo because it promotes science. Me and a fellow graduate student also felt kind of there was a void of just research being shared on the internet as well, like for free. And so we started a podcast where we interview other researchers and they talk about the research, but it's like 30 minutes to an hour. So this is, I've been thinking if I could do 2-minute papers as well. I've been wanting to share so many research papers with the internet, and I don't know if it would be well received or not. I'm gonna try to find some for neuroscience and psych, and if I can't, maybe we'll create them. This is very cool. It's not too much work for me though, because this is what I do on a daily basis and I love my work. So I'm super happy to do this, and it also helps me practice my own work, if you will. I see it as like as a win-win. Um, so I have to be doing this anyway. So this is another reason I started this channel, because a lot of the times I'm rehearsing or I'm practicing, or I'm talking to um, undergrads about grad school, and I was like, okay, like if people are having a lot of questions about like grad school, what it is and things like that, I can also put that on the internet for anyone else that has questions and stuff like that. So I'm already kind of doing this to begin with. So please feel free, please feel free to ask for anything. The purpose of this channel is to get connected, to get people connected with science, and to kind of get information out there. Another reason I kind of started this channel a little on the emotional side was I've just been seeing science be talked down upon a lot on social media, mainly by people who don't understand what science even is and what its intentions are and how it's done. And so people might think we have like agendas to control the world and that we're horrible people, and things like that. And they kind of turn away from college, or not college, education and science as a whole, which to me is kind of a problem. I want to combat that. So again, please feel free to ask for anything in this channel. That's what it's here for. If you have great ideas, suggestions, like this 2-minute paper is an amazing suggestion. And if you think that would be a great idea for psych, I will do it. Science control the world. It would be, I mean, okay, in an ideal world, science would be like the base foundation for a lot of our stuff, but it's fine. It's fine. We're getting there. I'm patient. I am very inspired by people right now. A lot of people seeking information is very inspiring to me. We can't even control politicians. I know, but yeah, I don't know. On social media's work, I was getting off of social media because I was just starting to get really upset. I'm like, man, people are trashing our science without even know what we do and how we do it. So yeah, again, I want to reiterate. Ask anything. If you have suggestions or things you want to see, if you think there is a void, like that YouTube thing, that is really interesting to me. 2-minute papers. I'm gonna go look at them, see what they do, and if I can't find anything similar to give you guys for neuroscience and psych, I will try myself. I'll try my best. And this Discord is also quite new. I'm still working on building it, but I'm currently also in the middle of my dissertation. So I'm also busy doing dissertation stuff. I have deadlines to be meeting, but this is just an ongoing project, and I appreciate anyone being involved, and I also appreciate anyone asking questions. That's really cool. Thank you. Yeah, no, it's a lot of fun. I'm enjoying this dissertation. It's quite stressful. I'm not going to take that away from it, but it's just about stuff that I really like. I just really like science. That's why when you say like there's these 2-minute papers on YouTube, it's not, to me, I don't see that as work. I see it as fun. Like I just have fun doing science and talking about it and sharing it. And that's the sharing component is where I really wish I don't want to place blame on a lot of professors and stuff, but I just really wish there was more sharing of information than there currently is. So that's one of my goals, is share knowledge. And I'm trying to back away as much as I can. This isn't for, I just found out what clout means. This is not intended to be for clout. This is not intended to be I'm not trying to push any personal agendas. I am truly just, I'm trying to like help people get connected to science. And I just didn't see too much of it on social media, so. Oh, cool. Okay. Performance psychology. This is really cool stuff. If you can, just so I can remember, I'll put it in there, because I think I already have some journals for you, and I know of another grad student who's doing neuroscience as well, cognitive neuroscience, and he is doing a lot of sports psychology and sports performance. So I can actually talk to him and probably ask him for if he has any free resources or anything like that. If not, I can probably get you articles. Let me go to suggestions. I'm gonna put it under suggestions. I just copy and pasted, so you don't have to worry about putting. I was gonna ask for a reminder on the Discord, but I'm putting it right now. So I put it performance and sports psychology. So I do have a colleague working in just that. he asked me to volunteer, and it was like you have to go into the lab and be on a bike and be doing these things and while doing cognitive tasks. I didn't take part in it because he asked me during one of my thesis defenses. So I was like, yeah, I'm really busy right now. Sorry. But good to know. Yeah, whatever you're interested in, post it up in the Discord anywhere you want or during any one of these streams. I'm super happy to address it or try my best to. I'm not trying to set myself up either as like an all knowledgeable person, but I'll try my best to find what you guys are interested in and get you guys connected there. I wonder why my link is just not working. I have to figure out my Nightbot and why it keeps providing an invalid link. I'm gonna put it here too. Sports. Yeah, no worries. There's yeah. Hopefully it's not my end. I hope it's not my channel that is, or my Discord channel that is messing up. Sports and what is it? Performance slash sports psychology. Performance slash sports psychology. And then I'm also going to check out the performance slash sports psychology. There we go. I'm also going to check out, let's see, suggestions. I'm going to put it here too. And it was called 2-minute papers. That is a cool idea. Let me edit this. I'm glad someone's doing that. YouTube 2-minute papers. There we go. Okay, put that under suggestions. Okay, so just in case, I've already put it into the Discord. Just in case your Discord continues to be problematic, I've already put it in the Discord as well. So I have that reminder for myself. And yeah, the other reason why I'm really happy to do this is because I get to learn too. So I'm not like an expert in sports psychology, but I get to learn, and I'll take any. I love learning. That's why this is no bother to me. So. I'm writing some stuff down really quick. Okay, cool. Awesome. So we're past the hour a little bit. I'm still happy to sit here and chat if you guys want to chat. But again, I'm kind of have talked about what I was going to talk about, at least the plan in my head about psych and neuroscience, and then social neuroscience and what those were. And then, as for the podcast I was mentioning, we're still working on like ironing it out. Me and that grad student, when we're talking about. Thank you for the follow, first of all. Thank you. Yeah, my dissertation. I have not spoken about my dissertation, but again, thank you for the support to this channel. Really appreciate it. My dissertation. So due to COVID, our lab has been shut down because we can't do human studies. It's just too close contact with people, and yeah. So due to COVID, I had to switch a lot of the things I wanted to do for my dissertation. And the reason I say that is because that means my dissertation is entirely social psychology theory driven, or I guess also cognitive psychology. But I won't get to do much neuroscience for now. If things drastically change, I can append my dissertation, meaning I can add stuff to it, and that's kind of my plan. But and one more preface before I go into my dissertation. When I speak about some of my science, so my lab deals with intergroup conflict and intergroup processes, which means if you can think of it like we deal a lot with the science of groups, so it's called social identity theory. I'll put that into the chat if anyone's interested in Googling this. A lot of this has Wikipedia behind it, social identity theory, and this is by Tajfel and Turner. I think it's mainly Tajfel. But so we deal a lot with social identity theory. So this just is the notion that you derive a lot of your self-esteem, pride from your social groups, and social groups can constitute basically anything. So being in varsity was a social group, and that's distinct from being in JV. Your race or ethnicity is a social group. Your socioeconomic status can be a social group. So it can be anything. Mothers is a social group. Male could be a social group. Anything you want. So some of the science that I deal with is dealing with intergroup conflict. So racism, discrimination, prejudice, stereotyping, those types of things. So when I talk this science, it's not intended to trigger anybody. It is sensitive topics, so I try to tread lightly on when I speak live on the internet. In the lab, we speak about it just bluntly because we're scientists and we're trying to understand our environments as objective scientists, just trying to gather information and measure it and make sense of our world around us and how the things around us are working. So here I do try to make sure that nothing gets misconstrued. So if anything's very vague, I might just say, I'm happy to talk to you about this via Discord. I'm super happy to talk about it, but some topics are just kind of hard to discuss live, not because I'm trying to censor myself, but because it can be massively misconstrued. So with that being said, my dissertation is trying to understand the attribution process. So I'm dealing with something called attribution theory. Attribution theory. I love this song. Attribution theory. So that's prominent. A lot of the theories I discuss in my dissertation and address are coming from attribution theory, or how we go about making conclusions regarding someone's disposition or your personality trait based on behavior. Some correspondent inference theory. If you want some more citations, correspondent inference theory. If I could spell, that would be sick. That's Jones and Davis. That's kind of a very simple description of the initial parts of attribution theory. So it's kind of, you see, the notion here is you see someone trip, right? You're sitting in a park, you see someone trip, and you might say, wow, that person's clumsy. Well, the question is, how did you conclude someone's personality trait that they are a clumsy person based on 2 seconds of data? You just saw them trip. And then comes this guy. So these guys start to kind of get at that notion. Actually, it was Fritz Heider. I'll put that into Fritz Heider in the 1950s. I think Jones and Davis was 1964. And Fritz Heider comes with, he kind of starts this notion of the naive scientist, which is this notion that we as humans walk around our social worlds trying to make sense of things, and in doing so we're kind of scientists gathering data, processing the data, and making conclusions. So you look at this data, 2 seconds where someone trips, and you say they're a clumsy person. However, in the 1970s we get what's called the cognitive revolution. So beforehand in psychology, we were just kind of often thought to, they didn't really understand the brain very well and cognition very well. So scientists like Lee Ross come into play, and he kind of highlights the weaknesses of the naive scientist, fundamental attribution theory. He kind of starts to know, wait, hold on, people are making a lot of conclusions about others without much data, so I don't think they're actually processing data very well. Fundamental attribution error. So he comes with this awesome notion of fundamental attribution error. This is all relevant to my dissertation, so I'm sorry if I'm like overkilling you with information. I hope this is interesting. I don't want to sound like a lecture. I want this to sound like a conversation. So anyways, so he comes with the fundamental attribution error, and this is just the notion that we tend to amplify the disposition and really minimize the environment, and for ourselves we do the opposite. We look at the environment and we don't really blame ourselves for much. And I know that might sound confusing, so let me go back to the example of someone tripping. Okay, cool. So you're sitting in a park bench, someone's walking, they trip, and you go, wow, that person's clumsy. Okay, you just made a conclusion based on that. But let's just say you reverse the roles and you trip. What's the first thing you do? Do you say, wow, I'm a clumsy person? Probably not. You're not inclined to do so. There is the self-enhancing bias is another theory that we can talk about here if we really wanted to, but it's just this notion of like we tend to want to see ourselves in positive light and kind of boost our ego and our self-esteem, which makes sense because if you didn't, then from like biological laws of fitness and natural selection and stuff, you wouldn't really be too evolutionary at an advantage if you kept putting yourself down, if you will. So there is the self-enhancing bias. So when you trip, what is it that we do, right? If I trip, we kind of look down and try to see what caused us to trip. And we're like, oh man, that concrete is slightly lifted. They should fix that. So now Lee Ross is like, time out, guys. Why is it when it's you take all the time of day that you want to incorporate all the data you can to come up to a very accurate conclusion, but for other people, you don't do this at all. You just call them clumsy and move on with your life. So 1970s brought about this era of we went from being naive scientists, so we're going around collecting data and actively processing this data in our mind, to being what's called a cognitive miser. I'll put that here. This was the notion in the 1970s to 80s, I believe, cognitive miser. And this is just the notion that we will think and only want to think when we have to. If we don't have to think, we will not engage in higher order thinking. So we kind of want to be stingy with our energy, with our mental effort, if you will. And so this kind of begins to explain how come it is the case that when you trip yourself, you give yourself all of like the quality or the time of day, if you will, to say, I'm not a clumsy person. Well, you're not going to say that to yourself. You just look around like, man, someone should fix that sidewalk. But when someone else tripped, you didn't fully think. And I'm not blaming you. When I say you, I just mean people, right? People might say like, okay, that person's clumsy, and they might just not even bother looking at the concrete. Maybe their friend just had pushed them and you didn't see that. There's all these other contexts. So going back to fundamental attribution error, where it says we tend to overemphasize the person when it's not us, and we overemphasize the environment when it is us. So when it is us, we didn't go directly blaming ourselves first. We go, okay, it was probably the concrete, someone pushed me, blah, blah, blah. You're looking at other factors that could have caused this. So this is the fundamental attribution error. When we make attributions regarding other people, you're making an error. You're not taking into account a lot of other data that you might have missed out on. Oh, that makes total sense. That's pretty subtle with the mental conservation. Yep, exactly. So they started to touch up on parts which now we know them as heuristics. So I talked about this earlier during the chat about heuristics, mental shortcuts. So then comes this other group of people. I'll put it here. Gilbert. Actually, we'll start with Winter and Ullman. This is very important work. And they do what's called spontaneous trait inference. This really shows the automaticity, how fast you can form attributions without having the right amount of data. So they start to show, okay, like this fundamental attribution error and Lee Ross is onto something. Here's some evidence. So what these people do, Winter and Ullman, or I don't know if they're German, it'd be Winter and Ullman. I don't know, Uhlemann. But they basically grab participants and they give them a list of sentences to remember. They say, okay, you guys are going to have to memorize these sentences because you're going to be asked to recall them in a little bit. And so they're like, okay, so they read the sentences, and some of those sentences are sentences like, the receptionist cut in front of the old man in line. What's another one? The farmer draws a swastika on the synagogue. There's another one. I don't remember I don't remember all the examples, but let's just go with those two examples. And then what they do for half the participants, they go, okay, we're going to give you semantic cues. So for receptionist, they gave telephone. So they say, okay, try to remember receptionist via telephone, basically. And for the farmer, crops. So they gave them like words to kind of remember the sentences by. And for the other half of participants, and they didn't have just two sentences, they had multiple sentences to remember. For the other half of participants, what they did was they gave them attributional type or dispositional cues. Disposition in this context meaning personality trait. So they put rude because the receptionist cut in front of the old man in line. And they also put bigot for the farmer drew a swastika on the synagogue. So on one hand, you had one group that was exposed to semantic cues, meaning which would make more sense, should make more sense. Receptionists at that time when they did these studies were heavily associated with telephones, and a farmer should be heavily associated with crops. It makes sense. But how could you get all these, how could you personality trait conclusions based on one simple behavior? Because when you conclude a trait, you're talking about that person at their core is inherently this way. But how could you do that if you don't have the data? So lo and behold, what they found was people drastically remember the sentences better based on dispositional cues, not on semantic cues. This was evidence of spontaneous trait inferencing. They were just kind of making these trait inferences, inferencing that this farmer is a bigot, even though maybe he had a gun to his head drawing that swastika, or maybe the what's it called? The receptionist, right, that cut in front of the old man. Maybe she had just gotten a call that her husband was in the hospital and she really needed to get through, right? There's many reasons why people might behave certain ways that we don't fully understand, yet we make very bold conclusions regarding their core personality or their traits. So this kind of started to show notions that there's a spontaneous trait inferences. Building on this comes Gilbert, Pelham, and Kroll. And this is 1988. Gilbert, Pelham, and Kroll. And a lot of these things you can find on Wikipedia. If you want these articles specifically, I'm happy to provide them because I'm working with the science here. So Gilbert, Pelham, and Kroll go, okay, so it was previously thought, under the naive scientist type of way of thinking, it was previously thought that we kind of take everything to account, process it actively, and then make our conclusions, and that there were two stages worth of cognition here, worth of making, like, processing your information and making a conclusion. First stage was categorization phase. So what is happening in front of you? You got to categorize it. Like, is it a door? Is it a person? You're going to categorize this thing. And back then it was thought to be a deliberate action. And then the second phase is called characterization. So what are some inferences you can pull from it? What is its character like? I think my music just stopped. Yeah, let's go to the other playlist. Cool, we got that going. So yeah, and that stage two is what is that thing like in front of me? What's its personality? Things like that would be kind of the characterization phase. You're characterizing it. So Gilbert, Pelham, and Kroll, they start to say, hey guys, we actually believe those two things are automatic, and there exists a third stage to cognition. So they were saying we both categorize and characterize automatically. We don't have to think about it. So when I see a door, I'm not thinking, okay, 4 90-degree angles, slightly longer, doorknob, that must be a door. No, I immediately just go up to it, turn the knob, because I know what a door is and I know how it's going to function. I don't have to think about how is it going to function. Is it going to open? Is it not? Your brain's not doing it. It's automatic. It's automatic as you walking. When you walk, you don't think about, okay, right foot, left foot, please engage calf muscle to then extend the knee, to then extend my bones, because you have skeletal muscles that touch the bone that kind of create the motion. You're not thinking any of that. You just walk. You just breathe. These are automatic processes of your brain. So when it came to cognition, this was kind of like, what? It was kind of revolutionary to think about the brain being, some of our behaviors being on an automatic, almost reflex level. And guess what? That's exactly what we've been finding. Even to this day, we're like finding out so much of our behavior is automatic. So much so that businesses took grasp of our science and have been using it on us. Social media uses on us till this day. They really like to play on our automatic processes. If you've ever been anywhere where a business gives you something for free, they're trying to play on a heuristic called the law of reciprocation. We have this tendency as humans that when we're given something, we just feel this stress to reciprocate and give back. And sometimes we do it automatically. Sometimes we stop ourselves like, wait, because of the third stage of correction. So this is important to learn about. And I'm going to go into the third stage, but I'm just mentioning kind of what an automatic process can be. Another type of heuristic or bias or whatever you want to call it is called the anchoring and adjustment heuristic. So if you've ever had to negotiate with someone and they go, and you and you're negotiating prices, they will obviously pick a price that will anchor you to that number. And then from there on out, however you negotiate will be centered around that number. So if I set my anchor to be $10 or $1,000, your argument power is very different. You think about numbers, your brain thinks about numbers very differently based on the anchor you were given. So businesses can use this to really like take control over your kind of haggling, if you will. They'll anchor you to a number first. Yeah, those are just examples of quick heuristics. There's a lot of heuristics out there, and I'm really happy to talk about those on the Discord or on future channels as well. I can dedicate a Science Friday to a list of heuristics and go through each study. I'm super happy to do that. Heuristics are incredibly interesting. One of the first reasons I got into social psychology, because I was a pre-med first trying to get into psychiatry, one of the first things that attracted me to social psychology were heuristics. I was insanely amazed by how much automaticity there is in our everyday behaviors. Anyway, Gilbert, Pelham, and Kroll, they say, okay, there's a third stage, and that's called correction. So correction is the phase where you are going to engage deliberately. So this is not like the two first stages that are automatic, that your third stage is deliberate, and you kind of take into account more data, and you try to revise your current data, and you try to correct for any inconsistencies in your data. However, to do this, so I'll just quickly explain how they kind of found this. So basically, to find out about correction and automaticity and all of that stuff, they brought in a group of people and they had them watch videos, like personal interviews, and then they were asked to remember these. Yeah, they were asked to, right? No, they were gonna make inferences regarding these people. I didn't want to mix it up with the different Gilbert study. Sorry. They were gonna ask to make trait inferences regarding the people that they saw. So they saw 7 videos, and it was just a person describing who they were. And they were asked, okay, at the end of this, you're just gonna kind of give impressions of these people. So trait inferences. And for half the group, they just saw them and then did it. And then the other half of the group, they were given what was called a cognitive busyness manipulation. So they were kept cognitively busy while they were listening. So they went from being an active listener to a passive listener. So to really explain this theory and like kind of the power behind it, or the kind of the big reasons that kind of motivated this, let's go over if you've ever been a student and there's a professor. So when you're a student and you're listening to a professor give a talk or lecture, you're most likely taking notes, assuming you're not asleep or anything like that. Because you're taking notes, part of your brain cognitive capacity is being consumed by the process of processing the information you're listening to. Yeah, I can. No, I'm happy to continue talking as long as people are here. The only reason I cut them at an hour usually is because either there was no one here, or yeah, it's usually for that reason. But if people are here, I'm super happy to keep talking. And of course, during any stream, even if I'm gaming, I will put down my game, I promise, and talk to you guys about science. That's the intention of this channel. But I can also dedicate, so Tuesdays and Fridays, every Tuesday and Friday, we talk about these things without gaming altogether. I just do not game, and I sit here and talk science. Tuesdays is more open to like any topic, doesn't have to be psychology or neuroscience, but Fridays is more refined to science. From power distance index and how it plays in esports while having a shot caller in team games. Nice. How do rookies perform in different cultures? Ooh, cultural psych. I came from a culture psych lab in my undergrad. Yeah, very cool. Yep, there's cool effects, culture effects there. I'm not familiar with the power distance index, but I can look into that. I'm interested what that is and how it plays in esports. We'll have it, yeah. But the different cultures, yeah, I came from culture psych. I was in a culture psych lab. It was very cool. I learned some interesting stuff there. Anyway, so I was going over active versus passive listener. And of course, if you want to switch topics to this, we can switch topics. I'm happy to. We can talk culture psych if you want. And I can also just continue if you're just interested in where this was all going towards my dissertation. I'm happy to continue. I'm not offended if my science isn't the most interesting. I understand we all have different interests. Powerlessness is like the boundaries someone sets with superiors. Oh, okay. So this might. This isn't entirely going to be related to, not entirely, but this might interest you from the social. Have you ever heard of a theory called social dominance orientation? If I can remember this, I'm pretty sure this is the Sedanius and Prado. Man, I'm gonna be proud of. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that those are the researchers behind it. I'm pretty sure that's how you spell it too. If I get this right, my advisor would be so proud of me. Sedanius and Prado. There it is. Oh, it's 1D. No. No. Yeah. Yeah, I can try to find papers on stuff that you might be interested in if you want that are not like fully academic. I just don't know those. All the articles I read are empirical research, like primary academic. But if you like academic articles, I'm happy to share some with you. So there it is. It examines like social hierarchies and stuff like that, and how they remain stable and how they perpetuate themselves. That's social dominance. Social dominance orientation is actually the measurement of social dominance theory. So I guess I should have called it social dominance theory, and social dominance orientation is how you measure someone's how high or low they rank on like wanting social dominance and stuff like that. But it's 1D, not 2. I failed. Yeah, so I think there's a Wikipedia on that, isn't it? If not, I can send you a paper. I can post it in the Discord. Let's see what the Wikipedia says on it. Okay, cool. I'm happy you joined us. I'm really happy we're getting conversations going, and welcome. Have a great weekend. Thanks for joining us. Take it easy. Yeah, not a problem. My pleasure. I'm going to check that out. Yeah, I'm going to check that out, and I'll see if I can implement something similar. Take it easy. This is very inspiring. I like this. I'm loving this. Thank you to everyone that's been so supportive of this channel so far. I'm enjoying this a lot. This is so much fun, and I'm hoping you guys can enjoy these too. I know there's no gaming going on, and you could be, watching something that's you could be watching something that's way more light, listening to lighter stuff, but yet you're here, so that is really inspirational, and I really appreciate it, guys. I am trying to make this as light as possible, but I know it can get theory heavy because it's science, and science has serious components to it, but it's not all not fun. I don't know, I just really like science. Cool. Anyone else want to talk about anything? If not, I will probably be ending the stream soon, but I think it's Friday night. I might do some gaming plus, but be open to talking about science again. But yeah, if anyone else wants to chime in, have questions, if you're interested in joining the Discord, I need to fix that Nightbot link so people can join and put their questions there or discuss things there. But this is very cool. This is so cool. People are requesting stuff now. That excites me. I'm happy. Our work in the Discord channel is coming live. When I say our work, I'm doing that on purpose. I'm not taking full credit for this channel. I don't want to. Other people have contributed to this, such as Geeky, so thank you. Yeah, hopefully we can continue to build something cool here. I gotta check out that 2-minute papers. I don't even know what that is. Is that an apple? Hold on, I'm gonna try it one more time. SP5. Right? SP5? Was it? No. Shoot, I forgot it already. Shark P5. Shark P5 GG. GG. I like that. I need more ideas for emotes. Because it's gonna ask me. I only have enough space for one slot right now, but I think I have to start uploading more, and I have no idea what I should do for emotes. No idea. Awesome. Well, in that case, I think I will start to wrap up. I think it's, anyways, almost time for dinner. But again, I do want to thank everyone that's either, I don't know how they could hear me, people who kind of stopped by, but I'm still gonna thank you. Thanks to everyone that's listening. Thank you, Geeky, for joining in again. I might be on again later, but yep, thanks for participating again today. I always appreciate it. Thank you to Z is my savior. I don't know if you can hear that anymore, but thanks for joining us today and participating in the conversation. That was awesome. It's so cool that people are asking questions and wanting the science now. That is super inspirational. So yeah, and thank you to any silent listeners. It doesn't matter if you don't participate in chat, but thank you for being here and listening. Like I said, you guys are taking your time. You could be listening to other gamers or listening to quote unquote like fun stuff. I find science fun. That's why I put quote unquote fun stuff. But you know, I really appreciate it, guys. So I hope you have a fantastic weekend. And I'll be streaming probably soon, but with games to relax a little bit. But I'm still happy to talk about science. Anyway, thank you so much, everybody. And I'm going to end it there. So thanks again. Have a good weekend. I'll see you on the next stream.